Outdoors collectors, and welcome to another Bossk Bounty video, and welcome to episode 176 of our Bossk Bounty. This is the weekly Q&A series that drops every Sunday where I answer your questions. So if you do have a question for next week's episode, you want to be featured in the video, please leave your questions in the comment section below. If you happen to enjoy the video, don't forget to drop a like down below because that really does help the video and the channel. Subscribe if you're new. And before we get onto the questions, I just want to say a big thank you to my latest Patreon supporters and channel members. Your names will be on the screen right now. Thank you very much for supporting the channel in the way that you do. I really appreciate it, and I hope you're enjoying the early reviews and the Discord channel and things like that. So thank you once again. Okay then, so on to the first question, and it's from RT2D, and he says, "Hi boss, question for next week. After Hasbro announcing the Obi-Wan and Vader 2-pack, what 2-pack would you like to see? For me, it would be the Luke and Leia Jedi training from Rise of Skywalker. Keep up the great work. Cheers." I've got to admit, those two figures from the Rise of Skywalker are pretty much the only figures that I'd want from that film. And in general, the sequel trilogy, I'm not really too interested in figures from there. But those two, most definitely, those two would be pretty cool in like a 2-pack, as you say. I've tried to think what I would like in a 2-pack, and obviously which figures would go together. And I'd like to see like a new C-3PO and R2-D2 in like a 2-pack, maybe from the droid sale. Maybe C-3PO's all a bit sort of dirtied up and he's got a restraining bolt on him or whatever. Maybe you could actually move the restraining bolt. I don't really know, but that'd be a really good 2-pack, because we do need a new C-3PO. But to be honest, there's so many that I could think of for a 2-pack, it's hard to sort of nail it down to just a couple. You know, I'd like to see a new Hoth Han Solo. And maybe they could do something with the Luke Skywalker. I mean, this is an alright figure, and you've got the one from the 3.75 inch Black Series. But maybe a way of getting the new Han Solo Hoth would be to sort of, you know, maybe kit bash this figure, make a better version of him, and then you could put that in a 2-pack. Because I do realise that these 2-packs don't tend to be sort of all new figures. And then obviously, you know, maybe a new Darth Maul with Qui-Gon Jinn, because I'm really looking forward to what this Obi-Wan version is going to be like in this Vader and Obi-Wan 2-pack, because maybe it's got like a new Jedi body or something. Maybe they could adapt that for Qui-Gon, I don't know. But yeah, a new Maul. I think we need a new Maul from the Phantom Menace. So there's just a couple for you to go by anyway. Dan Dunkel says, "Another great video, Tim, keep it up. Have you heard anything about Jabbas Bartender Astromech R2S4M? It looks like it's only available in Japan. Any word on a wider release? May the force be with you." So if you're not up to speed with which figure this is a Droid Factory figure, and it was on the Shop Disney Japan website, and so far has not been seen anywhere else. I can only imagine that it will be available soon. If Japan have got it on their website, then I'm hoping the US and the UK will have it too, because that is definitely one that I will be looking to get. I don't collect all of the Droid Factory figures. I'm not, you know, sort of a massive collector of those, but the ones that I think make sense for my collection I definitely want, and that Bartender one would fit in nicely. Manuel Vicario says, "Hi BB, question for next week. Out of your collection, which figure do you have the most of? Example, I have 45 212 clone troopers as an army builder." That is pretty decent. I think I've probably got about 15 to 20 501st, I think. But if I was to hazard a guess which figure I've got the most of, it would have to be the new A New Hope Stormtrooper. What was that? VC 231 or something, I think. Just off memory, it's probably not that. I actually bought a few cases of those figures. They were available here in the UK, and then they also became available on Entertainment Earth, and I think you can even still pre-order that. Link in the description below if they are still available. Due to come out next month, I think. Yeah, so I bought various singles of that one as well. So I think I might have about 25, 26 of that Stormtrooper, because you can never have enough Stormtroopers, and that is the best Stormtrooper, so I had to get as many as I could. Scout Trooper 75 says, "Hi BB, question for next week. How does one tell what issue a figure is? For example, let's say I have the original Luke Hoth figure and I'm comparing it to the reissue. Also, is there any sense in removing the import sticker on the back of the card? Thanks so much, buddy." I personally would keep the import stickers on the back of the cards. I think this one is going to have one. There you go, that's the import sticker from Hong Kong. I personally would keep that on there if you're keeping it carded. I have no idea why. It's an import at the end of the day. I just wouldn't take it off. In terms of how you tell a reissue figure, this is the reissued Luke Hoth. That's why I've got him here. And as far as I know, This is how you tell, apart from obviously notable paint apps differences and the photo reel and things like that, but reissues and all new figures tend to have this printed code on them. And I'm pretty sure, correct me if I'm wrong, that the originals do not have that. And obviously Hasbro being Hasbro, they put them in terrible places, like there's the new Clone Trooper and they've got him on the inside of his leg there, that little code there, can you just see that there? So they put those on the reissued figures as well, and yeah, that does my head in, to be honest, but I think that is how you tell. Jay Solo says, hi Bossk, great show as always. Question for next week is, do you think we'll see any vintage collection releases for the animated show Rebels, or as a few characters feature in the upcoming Ahsoka show, will Hasbro just wait and release those characters on Ahsoka card backs? Many thanks. I personally think, and I don't know this, but I personally think we'll get a mix of them over the next year or so. We're definitely going to be seeing characters from Ahsoka, and it wouldn't surprise me if some of the characters that are in Rebels end up being on Ahsoka cards purely because they're in the show. However, we will be getting Rebels cards because we know we're going to be getting Grand Admiral Thrawn from his appearance in Rebels. That is going to be on a Rebels card, and I can only assume if they are going to be doing a Rebels card for Thrawn, then it won't be too long before some of the others follow. And I think the community in general has been screaming out for those anyway. So I think they're finally listening, and yeah, we'll probably see them. Indy Owen says, question for next week, has anyone suggested a new Temple Guard and then put out a 4-pack army builder of them? Could you imagine a 501st versus Temple Guard diorama at the Jedi Temple? Yep, that would be pretty awesome. And this sort of goes hand in hand with the previous question, because obviously the Jedi Temple Guards were in Rebels. So if there's ever a time to do them and they start doing Rebels characters on Rebels cards, then the Jedi Temple Guard would be a cool one. And actually, that's an idea for a 2-pack. You could potentially have a Jedi Temple Guard and maybe Kanan from when they're training. That'd be a good way of getting Kanan out there. Who knows? That Thorn says, question for next week. Even though I'm sure the scale is pretty accurate, I've always found Jabba toys undersized and was thinking of using the upcoming Black Series Jabba with my vintage collection figures. Do you think that will look crazy or, like me, more accurate? I don't know if you're crazy, buddy. No, I think the one that we've got in the vintage collection is pretty much to scale. I think if you look at him in photos and stuff, or if you watch Return of the Jedi even, he isn't as big as people think. And I think the Black Series one would literally dwarf the figures. I think that would be more accurate, obviously, for the 6-inch figures. So I personally would stick with the vintage collection one, and hopefully we will get a TVC Jabba, so that anyone that wasn't able to get him previously or didn't get him in the barge can get a Jabba the Hutt. Alright, so there's a couple of questions here about the new Phase 2 Clone Trooper, and the first one's from Matt H, and he says, question for next week, after seeing so many reactions to the disappointing visor on the new Clone Trooper helmet, do you think we should rally for a helmet redo, similar to what you all did in response to the 212th Trooper Pack? I have no doubt we will get many releases of an otherwise amazing sculpt. It would be a shame to have all of them dampened by such a fixable error, especially when they've done it fine with the ARC Trooper helmet. Thanks as always. So yeah, I mean, I think, I don't know if it needs a campaign or anything, but I'm pretty sure that Hasbro have heard. They look at social media. The 212th was brought up in social media as soon as it was announced. You know, people saying, oh, it's been painted the animated style and we wanted a realistic style. This one, unfortunately, is about the actual sort of, not necessarily the sculpt of the helmet. I mean, it is a bit rubbery. It is a tiny bit oversized, nothing compared to the previous one, but it's about the paint apps on it and the way the visor is too thin. I don't even think there's enough room to add more paint to the visor. I think the sculpt is like that. So yeah, I think the only way that we can sort of, you know, get through our opinions on that is to voice your concerns on social media. They will see that, and it's a bit of a shame that we haven't had a Q&A arranged for us to attend since Celebration and the May the 4th live stream, because it would have been a perfect opportunity to, you know, ask the question around this figure, because as you say, we're potentially going to be getting lots more clone troopers in different colours and different battalions and all that kind of stuff. They're not going to waste that sculpt, and it would be handy if they sort out the helmet issue before they do all of those figures. And as I mentioned, there's 2 questions about this. So Major Camo says, another home run. Question for next week, do you think Hasbro will acknowledge the issues with the Phase 2 Clone Trooper, and if so, how long do you think it will be before we see the changes implemented? I've been holding out for this new trooper, but don't want to army build just to have a possible better version released in the near future. So yeah, this is the problem, and if Hasbro happen to watch this video, I don't know if you do, please, you know, look into this helmet before you start using it on many figures, because you can hear the community. They don't want to army build this figure because they're not happy with it. So we need to sort the base buck out first before you start using it multiple times. How long will it take them to make the change and implement it? Your guess is as good as anyone's, you know, but I would guess probably a year if they're only finding out about that issue right now. GoFanon 1943 says, hi Bossk, how about a 4-pack of aliens with interchangeable heads and hands? For example, Orange Rodian, Bith, Quarren and Trandoshan heads and hands with 4 stock bodies like a pilot, a thug, dignitary, merchant, etc. It'd be such a help to world building, and in my opinion could be done with mostly existing molds. So yeah, it's a great idea, and it's amazing that Hasbro haven't ever done that. The only thing I can think of why they wouldn't do that is because essentially they're enabling you to make your own figures, and therefore they can't sell you the figures. But if they're not going to make us the figures, then they should really do that, shouldn't they? Because as you say, the amount of different pilots you could get, for example, pilot body, interchangeable hands, heads, feet if necessary, that would be really cool. Charlie Karma says, hey BB, thanks for all you do. My burning question is why the new Han Solo is on a deleted scene card back. Why not mark it as such like the past deleted scenes figures? So yeah, this question actually threw me for a second, but then I had a look at the deleted scenes figures that I've got. These all came out to coincide with the Blu-ray release, so they obviously contain deleted scenes figures. I think the differences with this Han Solo is that yes, that image is from the deleted scenes, but the figure is from the film. He is in that film wearing that. When you look at Sandstorm Leia, Luke Skywalker construction, Lando Calrissian, I think the other one is the Mon Calamari pilot, and then the Colonel Kraken, all of those are in the deleted scenes. You don't actually ever see them in the movie, whereas you do with Han Solo looking like that. So they've just grabbed an image where he's not wearing his coat, basically. So and that's why I've got that one there, just to show you the two differences of card backs. Can of Spam 111 says, question for next week, do you think if they were to give us a Blurrg, it could possibly come along with the wagon they attached onto it on the Ewoks Battle of Endor? And also, what are the chances they will release Ewok film figures? I've got to say, buddy, I do love your optimism with this, but I think first and foremost we've just got to get them to make a Blurrg and more creatures in general. I think asking for a wagon, which would probably be a new sculpt, would be a stretch too far. Let's just get the Blurrg first of all. But yeah, I mean, obviously if they were going to give us a Blurrg, then obviously maybe they could use that sculpt to make more money off of it later on down in the line and give us that version. And maybe that would open up to Ewok film figures, but I'm really not sure how many people would actually buy figures from the Ewok films. I mean, they didn't go down too well back in the day, let alone now. I tried watching one of those films when they were first put onto Disney Plus, and I've struggled with it big time. I really did. However, when I was a kid, when I was like 7 or 8, I kind of enjoyed them. But yeah, it was a tough watch this time around. Pesto Pizza 2001 says, hello, question for next week. I know you own a Black Series Gamorrean Guard, but over the years, have you come close to collecting Black Series or 40th Anniversary Black Series? Is there a reason that stopped you from collecting that range? So yeah, I have most of the carded anniversary figures. I didn't bother with the Return of the Jedi ones, I must admit, but I did have the Empire Strikes Back, and I do have the Star Wars card ones. The Black Series for me, it was one of those things back in 2016, 2017, you know, before I started my YouTube channel or whatever, you know, I was buying a couple of those. You know, the 3.75 inch offering wasn't great at that point. They were trying to push people onto Black Series, and I was buying a few of them. I wasn't a massive collector having to buy all of them, and when I started my channel I did do a couple of reviews of Black Series. But for me, and you know, I don't really want to sort of turn anyone off Black Series when I mention this, but for me, when I have one of those figures and buy it and hold it for a little while and look at it, I don't know, there's just, for me, there's no heart in it. I just lose interest in them pretty quickly. It's like whenever they announce one now, I look at it and think, wow, look at that figure. I wish we had that in TVC. Look how well they've done that figure. It looks great. But I know if I was to buy it, a month or so later, it just wouldn't have that same sort of impact on me, and I'd lose interest in it pretty quickly. I just think there's something quite intimate about the smaller figures. Obviously, we grew up with them. I just prefer them, and obviously they come on these awesome card backs. I know the 40th Anniversary Black Series do as well, but they're much bigger cards and I don't think they look as good. Morgan Pogue says, hey BB, love the content, keep it up. Question for next week. Since 2025 is the 20th anniversary of episode 3, do you think Hasbro will release a new Phase 2 Commander Cody or other clones that were in that movie like Gree and Bakara? So I think 2025 would definitely be the year to do it. And as we've mentioned, if they're going to be releasing any figures that potentially use that helmet, then obviously, you know, they need to think about that and try and sort it out before they do. But in terms of the commanders like Gree, Bakara and Cody, it would be a great time to update those figures with the better articulation that we have now, the barbell hips and all that kind of thing. Don't get me wrong, the Cody figure that we've got now is great, but they could make it better, there's no doubt. So I think if they were going to do that, 2025 would be the perfect year. Alright then guys, that's it for this week's episode. Please check out my reviews of the latest figures. The Vader figure is already on the channel. The Tusken Warrior and Han Solo will be available for my Patreon supporters and channel members very, very shortly, and will be on YouTube live for everybody else in the coming days. So thank you so much for watching, guys. Thank you to my Patreon supporters and channel members as always. And if you have a question for next week's episode, leave it in the comment section below. Thanks very much for watching, everybody, and we shall see you on the next one.